Hello, greetings and salutations, everybody. Let's see if a few people do bother to join in today for a Q&A. I hope that they do. So let's give them a couple minutes to join in, get your questions ready. Sorry, I did not have a guest today. We'll see. There might be a couple people I gave links to see if they surprisingly call in today. And if that doesn't, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So let's give it a couple minutes to get people to join in, and let's watch just a few videos and we'll see what's up.
You really did train Kung Fu, right? Yeah. I mean, your Chi Sao looks serious.
Yeah. You've seen playing my videos today. Let's see what's going on.
Yeah, but yeah, no.
Red Flynn, you got any questions?
You really did train Kung Fu, right?
It is not doing my videos now that I clicked on the one.
You really did train Kung Fu.
Let me clear that one.
I mean, your Chi Sao looks serious.
Guys, please join in. Ask your questions, shoot away. Especially if you got non-martial arts questions about places I've lived, things that I've done. You know, we can talk boot camp, fire academy, various countries I've lived, visited. We can talk about women around the world. We can talk about all right, because you really want that? No, maybe not. Okay, let's try one more video. Let's see. Not sure if you can hear me right now. I don't know why the videos are really not playing. Maybe our connection. No, connection looks like I should be at full signal strength. I should be. When I can get out of this, guys. David, hello, welcome. All right, guys, let's get some questions. Just start shooting. We'll see if people join in. I know people are disappointed. I don't have guests lined up today. That's the way it was. Originally, I was going to have the real Mr. Miyagi Fumio Demura on today, but he fell out because he's quite an older man. That would have been great to get a real old karate master on. But we'll see what's up. Okay, first question from Red Flynn. Do I have much experience in FMA, Filipino martial arts? Yeah, I wouldn't say tons, but I've dabbled on and off with Kali since, I don't know, 98 or so. at various Jeet Kune Do schools. So I went to a couple different JKD schools. So definitely did Kali there in the 98 to 2000, 2002 type era. I also trained with a JKD instructor from the early 80s under Dan and Asano out in California, just, I don't know, 8, 9 years ago, something like that, probably. Instructor to Forrest Whitaker, famous actor. I met Forrest on set, talked to him about martial arts, gave him my old combat jiu-jitsu DVD. And then in Malaysia, I also trained under a family, heritage style Filipino Kali instructor. His father, his father's father, etc., had their own style of Kali. So I trained a bit with him, and he trained in my grappling and MMA classes a bit. Him and his son do fight Muay Thai and MMA occasionally. I believe he's still teaching in Malaysia. So yeah, I mean, I can do Kali. I can fight with knives. I can fight with sticks. I can fight with whatever's in my hand because I've done martial arts my whole life, and movement is movement, and all this style versus style BS is pretty low key stuff. So hopefully that answers your questions. David, you got a question for me? Start coming up with it. Type it in the comments. I feel like just people aren't biting on a Q&A because I've done them before. But, here's an opportunity for you guys to get some questions in. So hopefully that answers it. Red Flynn, let me know if you got anything specific you want to ask. I think a lot about Filipino martial arts is mid-range trappy happy bullshit, just like Wing Chun. You're either outside, big monkey movements, powerful, you roof block to get in, you bash the guy in the head, and maybe you're in a clinch range or you're in a grapple on the ground at that point. If you look at the Sayut Kali guys doing real, like, even without gear, if you look at the Dog Brothers stuff, mid-range is bullshit for the most part. You're outside or you're inside. All right, let's go to Woo Bear. Welcome, Woo Bear. You've been a regular. Thank you. Actually, all you guys have been. Thank you. If I could speak to anyone in the world, dead or alive, who would it be and why? I probably really just want to hang out with my grandfather again that taught me how to shoot. Peeling apples with a knife, old school. He was in the Army, and we for years just thought he was a cook, but we also know, and I got hit one of his patches. I had one of his patches, insignia with the lightning bolt. And he was a plumber by trade. He was a cook in the Army, supposedly, but we also know he was out for a couple years when they were doing the Manhattan Project. Probably nothing secret. Probably was just doing plumbing, but I really don't know. But anyway, taught me how to shoot, and even pretty much just before he died, he could throw up 2 clay pigeons himself, one by hand, one with a thrower, and get them both with a double-barrel shotgun. So I miss my grandfather. That's probably who I'd want to hang out with. Yeah, so I'm sure there's people in history I'd want to hang out with, but I'm going to go with that for now, and maybe I'll think of someone else in a bit. David Nomad asks, when did I actually start training? I started martial arts at 9 years old, Taekwondo. And I was a Taekwondo boy. And about 15, 16, 17, I started dabbling in cross training a little bit, like going to different places to spar and things like that. But I was pretty hardcore. I was the first black belt under my Taekwondo instructor that he ever had. And you can see a couple pictures with me in my new SEAGAL video. Guys, if you haven't watched it, I really edited the new SEAGAL video really, really well. with a score and everything. Even George thought my editing, quicker editing, was very movie-like and liked it a lot. Please watch that. Also, please, I had Kathy Long, 5-time world champion kickboxer, and not a lot of people tuned in for that. It's crazy. That should have at least 400 more, 500 more views now than it does, which is just crazy to me because we got a real world champion talking about, weight and there are 5 world title fights and everything. What was the reason or what influenced me? Followed a question from David Nomad. Well, I saw the Karate Kid, and I told the story before. When waiting at recess to get back into elementary school, in a line, a kid turned around. He was messing with me. He kicked at my groin, and I did wax on, wax off, and blocked it. And he looked at me, and I looked at him. We didn't know what to do. And after a little while, he kicked again, front kicked again. I blocked again, no joke. And then he ran away. Said, Mom, Dad, this real karate shit works. I'm the real Danielson. Sign me up. And boom, go to a martial arts school. And it was a Taekwondo school. So Korean karate, if you will. But that's how I got started. And so the Karate Kid influenced me. And years later, you can spot me just a tiny bit in Cobra Kai Season 2, Episode 6 during the bar fight. Joe BS, do you think one can learn martial arts online or from a DVD and do you do go to a Muay Thai gym mainly, just sparring? Wanted to get my black belt in American Kempo, but school's all closed. You pretty much need someone to train you. If you haven't trained, I'm a visual learner. I can just pick up stuff. I can just watch something and do it. Martial arts styles I have never even practiced. But most people aren't that way. You want to have an instructor. And if you do have an instructor, so if you're doing Muay Thai, well, then you could probably pick up other striking styles because you are literally doing striking. And hopefully you have an instructor, though you said you're just going to sparring. So maybe you need to take that more seriously. If you're just doing sparring once a week, you're only going to get so good. So you need to do what you can. Now, if you train martial arts, you're interested in self-defense, get my DVD, 4.5 hours, BJJ Fanatics, good place to plug it. So I'm going to do it. Get my DVD. I make it simple. I break it down. I teach a lot of different things. And you should be able to pick up, anyone should be able to pick up a lot from that. As far as American Kempo, I don't even know what that means. Is that Ed Parker? I don't know why that's what you want to do, but okay, I guess if it's under a good instructor. Ed Parker killed a man in a street fight, so I guess his Kempo worked, right? But Jeff Speakman, I don't know. I don't know what's up with all those Kempo people wanting to do Kempo, but whatever. Your choice, I guess, your life. Red Flint asks, have I done any fight choreography for film? Meaning, was I the one who choreographed it? I'm guessing I'm going to take that question as if I was the main fight coordinator or fight choreography. Not anything big. I did 2 small fight scenes. Hey, Greg, how you doing? Maybe I'll have you call in today. I can send you a link. Maybe I can email you. Greg, you want to actually call in on screen in a little while? I'll have you be a pseudo guest today, and I'll send you a link in an email if you'd like. Let me know, Greg Lionquest Fitness, if that's what you would like to do in a little bit. I can get you, I'll send you a link, and you can actually join in. So let me get back to Red Flynn while we're at it. Have I done any fight choreography as far as was I the choreographer? Fight coordinator. So I did coordinate a fight scene in like 1 hour that you can see with the black gentleman, Richard Heat was going to be the name of the movie. He was making his own little action movie. I met him in I didn't think I was legally allowed to be there. I went and met him in a shipping container yard, those huge shipping containers. I'm looking around, I can't find anybody, and literally we filmed in a shipping container. I hope I wasn't trespassing. I don't know. But it was pretty good little fight scene, and he wasn't like a martial artist, but I actually choreographed the ending. He beat me with a little cool Kali thing and kicked me in the face at the end after sweeping out my foot, Kali or Silat style. But yeah, I did a big round kick and a Superman punch and some knees. So I think it looked cool. I was also kind of the co-choreographer, just my fight scene in Loda. And you know, kick, 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 punch, punch, punch. I came up with all that with actually like one of the more known Krav Maga instructors, and he's done some crappy P Rambo movies, and he's quite a hypocrite. So I won't talk to him anymore because he's posting anti Second Amendment stuff, and yet made this movie where like he shot 80 guys. Like, dude, all these Hollywood types, they're so full of shit. They're such fucking idiots that I would love to beat up in person. But anyway, it was a cool fight scene, and he actually ran up the wall against my rear naked choke and did a backflip out of it, which was the big ending of Red Belt that you can see me in later in the movie Red Belt, just as I was turning SAG. So that was cool. And also, I wasn't the coordinator, and he was also for the movie Real Steel. I've shown you guys that film in past podcasts. But doing hammer fists, like doing the spinning hammer fists anyway, doing spinning hammer fists was my idea. And I think stepping on the foot as a foot staple might have been my idea, but I'm not sure. But the spinning hammer attacks were mine, and there was quite a few of them in that fight scene. Real Steel in the first thing going on. So Greg, let me know if you are like somewhere by a PC and you could actually join in today for a little while, and I can get you that. So waiting to hear back from you if I should email you a link. Okay. Matrix Cobretti. Oh man, Matrix Cobretti. Never even paid attention to what the first name was. So, are they going to make the film come Rando? Because Viking Samurai had a video. Is there going to be a Commando, Rambo, Arnold, Sly crossover? But Matrix Cobretti would be the Cobra, Marion Cobretti, and Matrix, John Matrix Commando crossover. Would there actually be one? So guys, get your questions coming. I see more people are joining in, listening. How did I get started in Aikido? Well, I'm the best Aikido guy that's done the least amount of Aikido in my life. I'm the best Aikido guy in the world that can actually functionalize it. Why do the rest of them suck ass? I don't know. But I actually did just a little bit of Aikido. I started with a 1-credit class. So I think I don't know if I did Judo and Aikido at the same time or different semesters. I think first semester I did a 1-credit Judo class when I went off to university at 18. And I think second semester I did an Aikido class. Or maybe I did them at the same time because I was also doing TAing a Taekwondo class. And I was also going to the Judo club. But so I did a 1-credit Aikido class. I've also dabbled a couple times at different Aikido schools. One I went to like 3-4 times that my cousin had previously gone to. One of my cousins, not the black belt under SEAGAL, but his sister. You see, I went to 2 different Aikido schools in Japan. The older guy in my new SEAGAL video. Guys, if you haven't seen it, I edited the heck out of it. I think it's really fun. So please watch the new video I put out yesterday. I went there, so in Japan with the older guy, 8th Dan and Akika. I went there a few times. And also, I went to this other kind of like functional, supposedly sparring Aikido. Went there, but they weren't doing any sparring, and they seemed to be, other than like 2 guys there, the rest seemed to be like typical Japanese people that train like twice a week in 1-hour classes and aren't athletic at all and are no good. I also visited a Daito Jiu-jitsu class, but they wouldn't let me participate. But I watched it. But there wasn't a whole lot of real stuff going on, though. And some Daito stuff, not the brother who's running it now, but his brother that died. He had the real stuff, and there was some cool stuff in Daito-Ru-Aki Jiu-Jitsu. Thank you for the questions, everybody. Woo Bear says, what books would recommend anyone to read? Great question, guys, and it's something you guys are asking me to do a video, and maybe I will in the future. And I thought about this today. I got 3 books next to me right now. There's a book I read by Doctor, and I keep forgetting his name. I keep forgetting his name every time someone asks. That was excellent about America and his growing up, is his autobiography. I haven't finished it, and I should. Looks like I'm only a little over halfway through. Colin Powell's book, My American Journey. Okay. General Colin Powell. Great book. I am now a quarter of the way through Made Man, being La Cosa Nostra, Made Man, Larry Mazza's book. Very interesting. I plan on having Larry on a podcast in the future. So Larry Mazza's book, very, very interesting. I would recommend that. And I haven't even cracked them open. I just got these in the mail. Daniel Di Marzio, the author of this Igor Vovchanchin book, one of my favorite fighters of all time, Igor Vovchanchin, because he asked me if I wanted to review this book, Stay Low and Circle Left, about a wrestler, and I think his military time and all kinds of stuff with a forward by Randy Couture. So Stay Low and Circle Left, and Igor Vovchanchin, The King of Fighting, Larry Mazza's book, and Colin Powell's book, and also the doctor who's worked in our government quite a bit, and I can't think of his name. Very good. Red Flint asks, how do you develop sensitivity for martial arts? Well, you got to have skin-to-skin contact. Awareness is a little bit different. Sensitivity, kinesthetic intelligence, it does help. I think it's helped me in my MMA and grappling and everything that I dabbled with Wing Chun for like 3 months with an instructor. I did some quite a bit of JKD. I've dabbled off and on, as I answered earlier, with Kali. So doing some Chi Sao or a hubbub drills or some Tai Chi push hands stuff, those type of drills, I think, build your sensitivity. So I think doing those drills would be really good to help you develop sensitivity. I don't think you have to do those styles for long. I think you can dabble for like 3 months, and even Aikido, you're supposed to be getting sensitivity, and yet like almost all these Aikido guys, other than the Tomiki Aikido guy I did that in a video with recently, guys, watch that video, very interesting. Most of them have no sensitivity. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Rokas has no sensitivity or spinal structure, understanding of base or anything. He just sucks. So yeah, boom. Joe B, guys, get more questions coming in. Be a short day. Joe B, do I still watch UFC or any fighting organizations? Yes, I watched UFC last night. I did fall asleep for most of the main event. Watched the 5th round. Watched the 1st round, I think. The rest of my eyes kept closing. Yeah, I still watch UFC. I watch Bellator when I can. I haven't watched one in a long time. I don't watch every event. I've actually missed a couple of events now. And until a few months ago, I had never missed any UFC events, like ever. I think I only missed one out of every type of event they've ever done, not just the big ones. It's getting kind of boring to me, to be honest with you, or at least the way You spend, with 25 minutes between fights, and their BS that they push, it's pretty annoying nowadays. Howard Funk, hrfunk, great channel. So Lionquest Fitness, hrfunk. If you guys actually feel like joining in and being a mini guest today, and we could have you on as a real guest in the future, if you guys feel like getting on camera, let me know. I can give you the link and have you join in. So thanks for joining in. Or if you could just got some questions, if you don't want to go on camera today, shoot your questions. Those can be Pew questions too, guys, not just martial arts questions. You want to know about boot camp, fire academy, different countries I've lived in, different fight teams I've been on, winning escapades around the world, different any particular movie or TV sets I've been on. These are other than martial art questions you guys are free to ask. So cars, pews, favorite pews, calibers. Let's do that today, though. I think the algorithms and the powers that be, but I'm in the mood today because I just haven't woken up. Even though I've been up for a couple hours, my body feels like crap today. So I'm in a mood. So hey, boom. If you want to ask pew questions, that'd be awesome too. So yeah, still watching UFC. Thanks, Joby, for the questions. Matrix Cobra, which SEAGAL movie has my favorite fights? Well, let me tell you what my favorite SEAGAL movies are. If you haven't paid attention yet, I think it's definitely Out for Justice as a film with a great bad guy and other actors in it. I think Out for Justice is an amazing film. Next up would be Above the Law. I don't care for Mark for Death as much as other people seem to, or even Hard to Kill was really cool as a teenager. Looking back at Hard to Kill now, it doesn't hold up, and I think Mark for Death doesn't hold up as films. Being a film critic, as well as some of the other ones do. Favorite fight scenes, probably Above the Law and Out for Justice again. Mark for Death, there was only like certain segments of fight scenes I really liked, like the three guys before the sword fight and the hammer. Part of that was cool, and part of it was a little sloppy. Before the sword scene, so I don't know. Thanks for the question. Woo Bear asked, "What advice would you give to the youth of today?" Stop being told what to think, you dummies. Stop getting your news off Facebook memes. You're so easily manipulated and so emotional that the young of today are quite just idiots, quite frankly. Stop being a robot, being pushed to think from the media mongols that make millions of dollars, that do incredibly bad stuff. Most of them are pedos, quite frankly, probably. Any of the big media people pushing you what to think have an agenda, and they have sided with very bad people that do very bad things, and they're getting paid by a country that, in my opinion, does very bad things and has horrible human rights violations and murders their own people and encamps their own people. People disappear and people get organs taken out of. I wonder what country that might be. And they're taking money from them. So stop listening to mainstream media. Stop listening to any of the social media platforms, and stop getting things just from mass media posts and Facebook and Twitter and Instaho and things like that. Read the books, especially read the book 1984 and Fahrenheit 451, and just learn to actually think critically instead of having an emotional response to lying headlines. Oh, boom, I missed one. Thanks, Ruber. Good questions. What was it like to work on the set of Sons of Anarchy? Good question. Sons of Anarchy was one of my favorite shows. I watched the very first episode live. So then getting a mini stunt season 3, episode 2. Stunt coordinator knew who I was, and they liked my look, and I wore a cutoff shirt to set, and it was actually taking place in a porn store, like a real legitimate porn store. We could also go in the back and watch girls diddle themselves behind glass. That was interesting. So in the scene, Opie comes up behind me, big Opie, the best friend of Jack's, grabbed my head and shoved me into the wall. And a pistol point, I think in 1911, said, "Get down." So you can watch that in my highlights. So that was actually one episode. And then I'm a different character, or am I? I don't know. Was I a Russian thug there? Maybe working with it? I don't know. Doing full-on stunt acting, really. Season 4, episode 2, as a Russian thug. And so I got to do a shootout with Jackson Opie, which is awesome. So you can see that I'm using, some 9mm blank pistol. And then later on in close-ups, it looks like a CZ75. And I hate it. Cocking noise as I shove the pistol in the girl's mouth, who I became close to afterwards. And yet it was a rubber pistol, and I didn't cock it. I hate the sound. Always does this kind of thing, or hearing like Glocks cock back, and oh god, I hate it. Huge pet peeve of mine. But anyway, working on the set was awesome. Good food. I mean, I got to work with some great actors. Danny Trejo was there. This other big Hispanic actor, I can't think of his name. So I got to work in these scenes with some great people. Things were pretty disorganized, to be honest. And Jackson, Opie, they're real actors. Charlie, who I've since done a scene in a movie that hasn't come out yet, and talked to a bit about jiu-jitsu. Charlie Hunnam, and Ryan Hurst, who also was awesome recently on The Walking Dead. They were kind of complaining about a lot of things, quite frankly, with each other. So I just stayed silent in the room a lot of times when it was just kind of me and them. Just stuff about set and disorganization and money and stuff like that, as actors tend to do. And you kind of just step back and be a hidden fly on the wall at that point. But it was great to work on. Sons of Anarchy is still one of my favorite shows. It kind of went up and down at times. But would love to work with them again. So I am in a very cool scene with Charlie Hannon and the Kurgan from Highlander. So I actually worked with the Kurgan a bit. I'm in this cool, intense scene, and this other cool actor's grabbing me and moving me around, and I'm in. So I forget what it is called. I think they changed the title now to Last Picture, or I forget what the title of it's changed to. Last Picture or something like that. But he's like this detective, a former cop who becomes a private eye, and he's out in the woods, and he's a very intense dude to work with. Charlie H. And also he came back from lunch and he was doing the Hickson Gracie like wavy arm thing, and I laughed, and he looks at me and he doesn't know what to do. He's like, it's like, you train? And then the set stops, and I got in trouble for it, even though he came up and talked to me about jiu-jitsu for a couple minutes then, which is funny. So he had gotten a blue belt under Higa Machado, who I've trained with in the past by invite only to his various gyms around the school. Bye, Howard Funk. Thanks. So maybe guys will have hrfunk and Greg. Greg wants to come on. So in a bit, we'll have Greg from Lionquest and Hassan. hrfunk we'll have on in the future. I don't know if we can do it next Sunday. Would actually be good if we advertise it, and I get you to advertise it a bit on your channel, and with you can create posts on YouTube, guys, and just make a message to your followers. So let me finish up this question, and Greg, maybe You can join in 5-10 minutes. Guys, give me a second. Hopefully I still have it copied. Let me spread the link. But I'd love to work with Ryan Hurst again. Thought he killed it. I love The Walking Dead. I auditioned for The Walking Dead. I almost, in the mid-season comeback, I thought I did a better job, and my agent thought I was going to get it. The guy in camouflage that shows up with a knife and then boom, blows up with a hand grenade. I almost got that, I think. And I think my audition was close, but a little more energy and eccentric, a little better, I think, than the guy who got it. No offense. I was really, really bummed not to get that role recently during the, I think, 4 or 6 episode comeback mid-season that they did. Hopefully some of you know what I'm talking about. So there is that. So guys, give me a second. I got to try and find Greg's email. So Greg, I'm going to email you the link. I think right now I'm working on it. But guys, it was just a great opportunity to work on Sons of Anarchy and do everything you've seen in my reel. If you haven't watched my reel, and I put a little bit of the footage in the SEAGAL things. Yes. So Greg, I am sending you the link right now, and all you got to do is click on it, put your name, Lionquest Fitness is what I would recommend, and join on in. You will be my mini guest for the day, and not a lot of people are joining in today, just because it's a Q&A. But Greg, you know, have the link, so maybe if you can wait about 5 minutes, let me get a couple more questions in, and then I'll have you join in. Guys, Greg, Lionquest Fitness, I guess I'll introduce him in a bit. A friend of mine, and got a channel I like a lot. Woo Bear, remake any martial arts action film, what would it be and why? It would be Out for Justice. Or Cobra. I mean, the big thing I want to do someday is do a remake or a TV show to be Married and Cobretti to be Cobra, but Cobra movie was a big budget movie. I think I can pull off a homage type film for Out for Justice or Above the Law, kind of in that genre, that vein. I think I'm ready to do. I didn't ponytail it today, but as you guys have seen, I got the ponytail going on. And so that would be what I want to do. Greg, thanks for joining in. I'm not going to make you live yet. Give me about 3 more minutes, and I will make you live. Which is better, catch or jiu-jitsu? What do you think? What was the name of my channel until recently? Catch Jiu-Jitsu. I think they're both important, and really I learned both at the same time. And that's why I said my style is Catch Jiu-Jitsu, because there's a lot of charlatan catch guys out there and guys who sell certificates and never trained in catch before a few years ago. They just wrestled or did jiu-jitsu and all that BS. And there's people that promote it that couldn't fucking tap out a BJJ blue belt, and yet they're making videos and whatever, and they badmouth people because they're all about the money. So there's a lot of BS in catch. But real catch, the way I teach it, the way I just taught it, my seminar and videos are now coming out in the next few months every Friday. My instruction videos coming out on catch top game awesomeness. Really functional stuff, guys, coming out. We've got a lot of great stuff from the seminar. And then on Wednesdays, I got videos of students practicing and me going around and giving little corrections. So hopefully you guys will enjoy that. But both are good. Jeff Speakman, what do I think about him? I loved him. And what was his main movie? I Got the Power by Snap. I really love that movie, and even the other one, lower budget, not as good. The Dark Knights or Knights, whatever that one was. So I like Jeff Speakman. I don't like all the stuff he kind of says about jiu-jitsu and MMA. But there's that. And Greg, I'm ready for you in 1 second. Podcast Demura got sick apparently and went to the hospital. So I lost Fumio Demura. He was supposed to be on a day. Dan Servant, I've been trying to reach out to. I thought Dan would hop on now. Hopefully he will, because it will help him. I got more subscribers on this podcast. Dan and Don Toxic Masculinity podcast. A great podcast I started listening to. But that's that. Okay, one more question. Guys, maybe we'll get more questions. I don't know how long Greg will stand, but we're going to go to Greg in a second. Dean Poole says, and we can get Greg, you know, he does a lot of fitness stuff. So we can ask Greg fitness questions and Pew questions and me as well about Pew Pew. Mentioning doing 50 push-ups every morning. Can you give any more information on my about push-ups and pull-ups? I don't do pull-ups. I do 51 push-ups. I try to like every other day or every third day. I had a lot of tightness and a lot of issues on my back. So the last couple weeks have been kind of with that, but I just started going to physical therapy. So I have a lot of tightness, everything in my lower back, my bin back, my upper back, everything kind of up underneath the shoulder blade, and striatus and neck issues. But I tried to do 51. Why 51? Because your opponent is probably only doing 50. When I was growing up, I did 51 push-ups every day, and that's why I'm strong. I don't weightlift. People think I weightlift. I got big old muscles. I don't weightlift. I used to weightlift in middle school from 6th grade to 8th grade pretty regularly in the basement. And I would train for like 2-3 hours, but I would study in between, read books and do math problems and all that in between. All right, we got a guest today. I'm going to welcome in Greg from Lionquest Fitness. Greg has his own channel, Lionquest Fitness, about fitness stuff and Pew stuff. And Greg was a former cop. And so I got a guest today. Let's talk to Greg from Lionquest.
Not much of a guest you got there. Hey, how's Strangler Lewis doing today?
Well, I saw your comment the other day, and I don't know if you deleted it. It got hidden. Ed the Strangler Lewis was the champion of the world, and I do have actual lineage, catch lineage to Ed the Strangler Lewis, because Gene LaBelle, who I have a black belt under, Gene LaBelle in go-kart, besides a black belt in BJJ, and Daido Juco, and Taekwondo, Gene LaBelle, his lineage goes to Ed the Strangler Lewis, Luthez, and a couple other guys. So really, that's where his catch lineage come from. So that's not all the places I got my catch lineage and knowledge from, but that's pretty legit when you go back to Ed the Strangler Lewis. So I do kind of look like him. I am kind of built his way. I am powerful. You know, not the leanest guy in the world. You know, but that's kind of what the strongman. I was the ideal man. I mean, before my belly really got big, I used to be the kind of the ideal, don't get picked on the beach type guy. So welcome in, Greg. Thanks for joining in.
Well, you know, Lewis, he only got beat when there was money on the table, when they were paying him to get beat. Nobody could beat him. He was like a great dancing bear.
Well, yeah, back in pro wrestling in the days, it was a little more real, and the guys really knew how to shoot. And so they could kind of control the match, the real shooters versus the, you know, guys who didn't really have real catch wrestling ability. So, yeah, he probably only took a dive when he made extra money because he could control the match. When you could actually wrestle, you could control not only your own body, but the other person's body. And, yeah, so Ed the Strangler Lewis. I think I have one video on my page. I'm not sure. I think I have one video in my epic old martial arts video. I think I have 1 or 2 matches with him, but I'm not positive.
Well, see if you can help me on this, because I'm curious. You know, there's a lot of confusion. I know back, you know, reading books from back in the 30s and the 1920s, it seems like catch wrestling was very similar to jiu-jitsu, or how jiu-jitsu was practiced back then. What are the differences between jiu-jitsu and catch?
Well, you know, it goes back even earlier to late 1800s, and then especially in England, and then eventually to the U.S. As the colonies traveled and whatnot. Catch wrestling, I mean, really, wrestling was catch wrestling. Because until about 31 or 32, and I'm not a historian, guys. I had an historian on a couple episodes ago no one watched, Matthew Granahan, who knows more about catch wrestling because he wrote a book on it and traveled and interviewed all these guys with Eric Poulsen. But until like 31 or so, they were allowing submission holds, catch holds, in regular wrestling. So not only could you pin a guy, but if he happened to like cry uncle because you had him in some kind of a lock, it worked. So freestyle wrestling, folk style wrestling was pretty much legitimate catch wrestling. And pro wrestling may have had outcomes on who would win or not, but it was pretty hard. It was pretty stiff, to use a term, and the guys knew how to actually put legitimate holds on. Now, there was show holds that are harder to actually make work, like a full Boston crab versus a half crab, show holds. But those guys knew how to rip a top wrist lock, a double wrist lock. They knew how to do it. So good question. But they didn't go to their back because pinning was always part of, usually. Now, rules were always different. So there wasn't set rules. Anytime guys had a catch match against someone else they promoted, or even carnival matches, the rules tended to always be different. But typically, you could win by pin or submission, a catch. So that's kind of the difference, is there wasn't any of the butt flopping that you saw at least one side of the lineage everyone's familiar with of jiu-jitsu, more the hoist style of jiu-jitsu, Helio style, versus the Carlson style that is like, yeah, get on top and punch face. So the jiu-jitsu that America's bought into was kind of not even the full real Gracie jiu-jitsu that everyone thinks, which is a little bit unfortunate. Had we had Hickson go in there taking down and mounting guys, what they thought was jiu-jitsu would have been a lot different than the politics that put Hoist in instead of Hickson in the first UFC. So good question. Before we go, let's tell us a bit about yourself, though, Greg. What is your channel about, and who are you, and some of your background? And don't be modest. Give a bit of your background.
Well, first off, I'm no expert. I'm just a journeyman. Done martial arts a good chunk of my life. I was a police officer for a couple of decades. I actually teach law enforcement now. I teach law enforcement and firefighting at a high school career and technology center. And I got into doing the shooting videos because I went through a period of 12 years where I didn't even own a firearm. Because once I got out of police work and started teaching, I'm raising a family. I got small kids in the house, and I got rid of all my firearms. And anyway, I had a wake-up call a few years back, and I got back, and I realized I really missed firearms and firearms training. And I'd already been doing a little bit of YouTubing, with some physical fitness stuff and some self-defense stuff. And what really started me on the firearms videos was I got on a forum asking a legitimate question about a pistol that I had. It was defective. And all I could get from all these idiots who grew up on Call of Duty was, "You're limp wristing the gun." And I'm like, I ain't never limp wristing the firearm, you idiot. But, listen, I don't have anything against pistols, polymer pistols. I love all kinds of firearms. But revolvers have become kind of a niche because I love revolvers, and it's something that a lot of people aren't doing anymore. And so people tend to associate me with only revolvers, although I do shoot a lot of other firearms as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, guys, especially if you got any I'm going to say the word pew. I don't want to say the other word too often because I already see that maybe they're stopping our video from going out to as many people, because that's the way things are. Before you were really doing a lot of that stuff, there was a lot of fitness stuff too. So I also want to have you talk about that. But guys, if you have any questions about different pistols, revolvers, for both of us, we can even debate a bit back and forth. That would be kind of fun. So 2 decades in law enforcement, though, Would you like to get into that a little bit? Because I'm interested about your background, and you tend to you're a little bit shy. You're not braggadocious, unlike me. So you tend to not talk a whole lot about your experience and some of the stuff you've done or situations you've dealt with. Would you like to talk about some of that?
Well, the thing is, a lot of the things you deal with in law enforcement, the everyday person's not going to believe it because truth is stranger than fiction. And, I worked mostly small town law enforcement, which is actually more dangerous because a lot of times you're working by yourself. And, one day you may be writing somebody a citation for because they let their grass grow too high. And then the next day you're going to be investigating a murder. So you get to do small town policing. You get to do a lot of different things.
Was that all in South Carolina, or what states?
It was all in upstate South Carolina. And actually, I was recruited to be one of the first school resource officers in the county that I live in a few years ago. And that was the most rewarding thing in law enforcement I've ever done. I spent 5 years in a high school, and I actually felt like I made a difference. In fact, I got the job I have now because of how good a job I did as a school resource officer. And I had some people come when they started this law and public safety program in the Career Center. I had some people come and see me from the school district office, and they're like, Greg, we want you to apply for this job, but we can't tell you to apply for this job, but we want you to apply for this job. So, and I've been teaching for the last 17 years. I'm also a volunteer firefighter and EMT. And it's been an interesting ride working with young people and how things have changed over the last 17 years and how young people have changed and how the school systems have changed.
Greg, I don't know what your background is. Can you tilt your screen down a little bit? Can you just tilt your screen down a little bit? I don't know if you're hiding stuff in the background, but can you tilt it down so your camera lowers down a little bit?
Okay, I'm sitting on my porch.
Yeah, that's better. That's better. Yeah, I'd rather just get a better shot. That's much better. So, do you find that you work with high school kids? Like, is that the age you tend to like working with and interacting with? Because you feel like teenagers are going through a lot of problems at 15, 16, 17 years old, a lot of different stuff going on, and they kind of need people besides their parents to connect with. Do you find that that's kind of the age group that it seems like you can really make a difference with?
Well, I've also worked with the small children, the 5th and 6th graders and some middle school. But yeah, I prefer the high school. And but eventually I'm gonna have to retire from this. I like being around adults now, and sometimes you get burned out absorbing all these kids' problems and baggage. And trust me, kids today, it's horrific the conditions they're growing up under in this day and time.
Do you think that's mostly because a lot of parents are really absentee parents, that they're not teaching their kids a foundation of rules and discipline and how to live the golden rule and stuff? Do you think it's mostly because the parents aren't involved like they used to be as much?
That's a good part of it. And a lot of these kids, their parents are drug addicted. I have kids whose parents are serving time, both parents, not just the dad. I have students who are caught in the DACA trap that Obama created. And, students who have a lot going against them. And, trying to keep them between the ditches and trying to keep them focused and, trying to get them to look at the big picture of establishing a career in public safety, or any career for that matter, but helping them get, weed through all the things that they face today as a teenager?
Well, I brought it up because I actually years ago I went back and taught a special program. I taught martial arts at one of my old high schools. I went to 3 high schools, so I went back and I have a letter thanking me for like being good with at-risk use, which really in this rich town there wasn't at-risk use. You know, I only had a couple kids that I really use. Yeah, like Utes. I'm gonna say Utes because the Utes. These 2 Utes are good. It's one of my favorite movies. My cousin Vinny. It's so hilarious. I think that's what you were getting at. You know, I think you know about posi traction and old Buicks, but great movie, my cousin Vinny. Anyway, which is Daniel's son, LaRusso, actually, so that's funny. I taught a martial arts program at my old high school. So I actually, during the day, 1 day a week, they were able to go. They started a new program where kids could sign in any class they wanted to. As long as they were actually somewhere they were supposed to be, it was okay. So I was able during the daytime once a week to teach these kids. We called it the Taekwondo program, but I was really teaching MMA light to kids because I was teaching a little Aikido, a little wrestling, a little kicking, basics, punching basics, jiu-jitsu basics, judo basics, but we called it the Taekwondo Club to be politically correct. So I was able to teach that 1 day a week, and kids would just come in, and they really loved it, and I really helped a couple people out. I remember I had a female wrestler that I particularly helped out because she was getting picked on a lot and getting called gay, and she goes, "Look, I'm not gay." I'm like, "Okay, whatever you are is fine by me." You know, because they were calling her a bull, you know, and all that kind of thing, just because she was on the wrestling team. So I helped her feel confident and feel good, and it was just good to teach high school kids martial arts. And in the past, I was also a camp counselor at a Greek Orthodox camp. I tend to relate, or they relate to me, I should say, really well, maybe because I'm not very mature, to teenagers. So I tend to do really good with teenagers that are going through that angst and kind of personal identity issues and stuff like that. So I think it's great that you work with high school kids. And I want to talk about fitness, and I want to talk about firearms. But
fitness, real quick, Dan. Do you ever do the Hindu push-ups? That might be something that might help the shoulder problems you're having.
I watched one of your videos last night, actually, about different exercises that look like maybe that would help my shoulder blade issues I'm having. So I'm kind of set in my ways and lazy, but I think you know some knowledge that might be able to help me. As far as Hindu push-ups, not really. I've done like judo push-ups, which are kind of Hindu push-ups, I think. So when you're back on the tripod and you go down and you back arch, that's kind of a Hindu push-ups, isn't it?
I've heard it called judo push-ups as well.
Yeah, so I'm familiar. I've done them before. What does that help out with? Does it help out back flexibility and kind of the shoulder blade area that I'm having issues with?
Well, over the years, I found that people who are very tall tend to have lower back pain with those push-ups. But for someone of, under 6 foot, it tends to, it helps strengthen the shoulders because it gives the shoulders a good stretch, and it tends to encapsulate the whole muscle when you go that forward direction, and then, of course, you stretch back. And the whole idea is to, for someone my height, I'm 5'10", it tends to elongate the spine. And but that might be something that might be useful for rehabilitation, especially doing sets, because you get that blood flowing, and the blood heals a lot if you can flow it in the right direction.
Okay, I will try to do those because I'm kind of doing like a downward dog as a stretch and like a cat stretch anyway. So I'm kind of there doing that on all fours anyway. So I'll add a few and see how I feel.
Well,
So thanks
the
for
thing
that.
about the thing about push-ups is a lot of guys get into the numbers game, and I found over the years that really doesn't work very well. For at least it didn't for me, because when you're doing numbers, you're overworking the joints. You know, like I used to do 100 of those Hindu push-ups every other day. And then I would do 500 to 700 regular push-ups every day, and there was very much a diminishing return in the amount of effort I put into it. And you're better off doing sets of say 25 push-ups, whatever variety you're doing, 10 to 25, and doing 100. Like right now, I very rarely do more than 100 push-ups, but I do 100 every day. But I do it in sets. Some days I do the Hindu push-ups. Some days I'll do like push-ups on the parallettes. Some days I'll do it with my feet elevated. Just you mix it up. That way you don't have that same plane of motion every day that tends to overwork the joints.
Mm-hmm. So, guys, I think what you're hearing, guys, and go ahead, we'll answer questions kind of as we go along. I'm going to ask Greg about 686 in a second, Joe. I think what you're hearing is that just push-ups and body weight exercises can really be good because I'm ill and 44 and I've gotten fatter, but I'm still ridiculously strong, guys. And that's probably from push-ups my whole life, and I need to be doing regularly like I was preaching a lot about a month ago. In fact, I asked you guys to send in DanTheWolfman 51 push-up straight challenge. If you can do it, send me a video, guys. But Greg, I don't know how old you are, but you're in great shape. He's lean, he's
60.
strong. It looks like 60. I mean, you're in very good shape, and it looks like you're flexible and have a pretty balanced body. Do you have a lot of back pain? Because that's a big issue with Americans, and especially you were a cop for 20-some years or something with a big heavy-duty belt on. That probably didn't help. So how was your back?
Well, I trashed my back really bad between 30 and 40, where I got into heavy weightlifting, and that's the wrong age to do it. Doing the deadlifts and the below parallel squats and all that stuff. And I've got a lot of damage to my lower vertebra, but that's why I started looking around for, something else to do, and I tried the Matt Fury Combat Fitness, and yeah.
I met him once. I was not impressed. He wouldn't even look me in the eyes. He seemed like such a charlatan. So I just walked away.
Yeah, well, at least he popularized, the Hindu push-ups and squats. I'll give him that much.
Okay, he did. He put it out there.
Anyway, I got back into the old Charles Atlas kind of stuff. The dynamic tension, the self-resistance, and see, anybody can do those kind of exercises.
Well, actually, we got a question here. I'll put up on the screen. I think you'll be able to see it. Thoughts on resistance band as a regular approach to fitness, easier on joints? You would just kind of mention that. So John Chipman, AIKIDO. So what do you think about resistance bands?
Oh, it's great. It's excellent. The thing is, you have to be careful with the resistance bands. It's very easy to strain your joints by trying to go to failure, but if you train, and once again, and I think training in sets is a much better way of training as opposed to trying to train to failure. So yes, I think resistance bands are great, and you can build a lot of strength, especially your tendon strength, but you need to be careful about overdoing it, especially as you get my age.
Yeah, other than PT in the past and PT now,
you're younger.
I haven't really used resistance bands, but on one of those light ones at physical therapy the other day, she did have me doing sitting down, chin back, kind of an outward can't get my arm there, an outward Udi Garami type motion to try and get inside my
This
shoulder.
motion here.
No, it's really hard to camera it. Outward, I can't really do it. So elbows near the hips, under the ribs, and then fist from center out, both fists going externally outward.
Mm-hmm. Or more like this.
So she had me do, not exactly, had me doing that physical therapy the other day to try and isolate inside my shoulder blades, and I'm doing open the book to open up that area. But that's a good question from John Chipman, one of my regulars. Ascension AIKIDO, thank you. Another fitness question. Would you recommend a gym for someone over 50 or body weight workouts, from Joe B?
As in, that's
what do you recommend? I think he means going to the gym and doing weightlifting versus body weight exercises.
Well, see, this is the problem with weightlifting. Now, I can take a 10-pound, two 10-pound dumbbells, and I can work somebody out, having them use tension, where they tense the muscle with the weight, and work out with that. And it's self-protective because you're not using that heavy of a weight, but you're still creating that contraction in the muscle. The only problem is with weights, it becomes an ego thing where you always want to go in and do heavier and heavier. And, it's hard to pull your ego back with that. And same thing with the calisthenics, because you start getting into the push. Once you start doing a lot of push-ups and you get strong at it, you start wanting to do more and more. The old saying by Bill Starr was that strength is a greedy mistress. And that's one of the things that you need to kind of throttle back on. So whatever works for you. If you want to go to the gym, and you can go to a good gym where you got people who are supportive and it's not an ego fest, and you've got knowledgeable people who you can get good solid advice from, that would be great. Or, there's plenty of YouTube channels now that do the body weight workouts, and you can learn a lot from them. That's good money. I enjoy watching that channel. Those guys are really fit. Now, the thing you always got to remember, most professional athletes, whatever type of professional athlete, they use performance-enhancing drugs. So don't feel like you're going to get the exact same results as some of these guys on these fitness.
Yes, I haven't looked at many, but I saw some the other day, and I'm like, and one of them was an older guy, and the way that the abs are so ripped and whatnot, I'm like, are these guys on juice? Now, basically, I think the lesson is whether you weightlift or not, or make that supplementary, you can do a lot with body weight exercises. I think we both feel that way. And if you look at it, I mean, guys in prison forever, other than occasionally when guards weren't watching, using garbage bag filled with water on the mop broomstick, that's all they would occasionally have for weights at certain facilities. But we see these guys are jacked, and I hate to go to felons for showing anything, but they showed that lots of body weight exercises can definitely make you in shape. So I think that's kind of the lesson is, add more body weight exercises. I never believed in squatting with weights, but I used to do 100 air squats every day, 51 to 100 push-ups every day, like 51 and then maybe 25 and 25. I did 100 air squats. I did 100 calf raises, and I did 100 various stomach exercises. Like maybe one day it was all leg raises or alternating or crunches or side crunches. I would do at least 100. So that was my workout basically from middle school throughout high school.
And so that's a wonderful way to work out.
And I weightlifted as well, pretty heavy for a few years, and then off and on at powerhouses and stuff.
Let me bring up a point here. This is a good point that often gets missed. Now, a lot of these guys on the YouTube channels with the bodyweight exercises, they don't weigh a lot. They have more of a gymnast type physique. Now, you weigh 250, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm about 248 now, and I'm only slightly fat at like 238. So based on my body structure, like I look a lot better, only 10 pounds lighter. That's why these guys are making fun. Some of this is coming off. It's the camera angle, but that's because I've had to go high on prednisone. And then, but for a movie or something, I can lose 10 pounds. I think I should still be able to lose 10 pounds pretty fast just by cutting out my one day a week cheat day, carbs, and doing cardio. So I mean, my face isn't as bad as people think, though it is kind of bad right now because I had to go high in prednisone, and I'm just now got permission to start lowering my dosage because my kidney's looking a bit better now finally. So
all right, well, let me make this point real quick. All right, now you're a big bone guy, and at let's say at 245, you can do 25 push-ups. Okay, now we're both about the same height. You might be maybe a little bit taller, but I weigh 185. Okay, you do 25 push-ups, and I do 50 push-ups, but who is actually stronger? You see what I'm saying? You know, you're pushing a lot more weight.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, and I mean, but there's definitely that also goes into like functional strength and strength to weight ratios now. Yeah, I'm fat now, so like I'm strong. You grapple me, I'm a bear. But can I rock climb?
I watch you grapple. I wouldn't be able to get my hands on you.
But like overhead stuff now, it's a big difference between 228 is where I really am good in weight. And I'm ripped at like 198, like 200. I'm like ripped. And only a few years ago in Japan, training for a potential fight, I got 2 pictures. I am ripped. But at like 228, I'm pretty good. 238, I only look slightly fat. I have a distended stomach, but I'm really not fat, that fat. And just 248 now, I look pretty bad. But it is what it is. But yeah, I'm strong as heck. But like overhead stuff, climbing, when body weight, when it's strength to weight ratio, yeah, I'm strong, but not. I can't. I'm not gonna do Stallone's cliffhanger movie anytime soon. But I could.
Me neither.
I could remake Cobra though. I could remake Cobra.
Well, anyway, before we move on to something else, I do have I moved all my fitness stuff. I started doing my fitness stuff over to another channel, the Lionquest exercise channel. And a few weeks ago, I started a new quest, so to speak. I wanted to see how far the calisthenics and the self-resistance exercises, how good a shape and how strong I can get at 60 doing this kind of stuff. And so I'm on week video 2 right now, and I'm going to try to document it every week or every other week, and give some ideas and some some tips and stuff for people to use. We find there's a lot of people who are interested in the self-resistance training, especially in South America and overseas, because they can't afford a gym. And a lot of older guys too, that they can't lift weights anymore because, your body shuts down. You don't have the synovial fluid. That you start having other health issues, and as you age, and you have to find ways to work around that to stay in shape.
So, Greg, your main channel, Lionquest Fitness, which lately has been more the revolver stuff and firearm stuff. What's your new channel that's going to be more on the fitness part?
It's a Lionquest Exercise.
Lionquest Exercise. Okay. So, guys, subscribe to both channels of Greg, Lionquest Fitness and Lionquest Exercise now. Are you going to port over some of your older videos from the other channel, your older fitness videos and exercise, different stuff? Like the one the other day was interesting. I'm like, oh, was that with a band or a bar? I wonder if some of that actually feels good right now. So do you think some of that stuff would help out my shoulder blade? Kind of
taking like a towel?
Yeah, I saw you doing a couple of those. You did different ones, and it looked like, I'm like, oh, that looks like that will help me because of what's going on now. And I mean, it's like deep under my shoulder blade and kind of striatus, and I have psoas issues and a lot of different issues. So are you going to port some of those older videos over to the new channel as well?
I've got some. I probably need to go ahead and put all of them over there, and I wanted to leave a few over on the main channel.
You can just put
I've
them on
also
both. Yeah, just put them on
what's
both.
that? The
If I were you, I would put them on both. So on your new channel, Lionquest Exercise, I would try to do one brand new video a week at least. I don't know what your plan is, but I would do a brand new video the same day every week, every either Thursday or Friday afternoon seems to be the best for YouTube to get views. And then maybe like every Monday, I would put one of your older videos. Launch it on the new channel. Leave it on the old channel, but launch it as it's new, but it's an older one on the new channel as well.
That's not a bad idea. Let me say this about the firearms community. Well, no, I better not say this. I love the firearms community. That's one of the reasons I separated the channel, because a lot of the firearms guys really weren't into the fitness stuff. But it helps you it makes you a better shooter if you're physically fit, But I'll say this about the fitness community. I used to help a guy, a publisher up in Minnesota named John Peterson, with his website and moderating his forum. And I wrote some introductions for some of his books. And I owned a gym for 3 years. During a time where I'd gotten out of police work for a few years, I ran a fitness center.
Oh.
And the bottom line is the fitness people, dealing with people in the fitness world, they're nutcases, and then martial arts is kind of their own, little thing too. But I found it very refreshing that people in the firearms community tend to be more down to earth.
Yeah,
so,
that's
for what you will.
Yeah, I think the firearms community, which is an American community, if you will, and around the world, but I think tend to be really good people for the most part, because most of them grew up, and that's kind of missing now, with someone teaching them. Like my grandfather taught me to shoot. I was never big into hunting, but I went out with him a few times, shoot birds or turkeys or whatever. I never went deer hunting, but having it's one of the things of losing manhood maybe now, having someone older teach you the ways of life and death, which is really what hunting is, right? And pretty soon here we might end up with bad food shortages. Being able to provide for your family, for yourself, that's life and death. Being able to take care of yourself, to feed yourself. And I think that teaches you, whether it's a weapon for self-defense, which everyone should have a God-given constitutional right for, it makes you aware of things when you think about self-defense, and it makes you aware of things. Maybe if you shot poor Bambi, which I'm like too sensitive, it makes me cry. I'm that kind of guy. But
it's food on the table.
I wish I was more handy, because we're going to a time where that may be very well be needed. But I think it makes a good community. I think it makes a good community because you think about these things and you have a personal responsibility, something else lacking in today's world. But it's let me get back to the point about having my grandfather made me the man I am, which I mentioned earlier. So having someone, older than you teaching you the ways of being a man, we've lost that now. And God forbid, you want to be manly and be able to take care of yourself and be able to be a protector of your family and the good people around you. That's kind of been lost. And they're pushing that because they like pushing that, because then you're easier to manipulate and emotionally control. If you weren't taught to be strong and taught to handle your business and weren't taught to live the golden rule and to protect yourself and to stand up against bullies and all this stuff that I think is being lost. And I think that goes hand in hand with the 2A community and why it's such an important community. And people are usually very kind. I go to a range now, and there's a lot of people in the last year, let's say, in a certain segment of society with darker pigments than me. I don't care about the color of someone's skin, but the facts do point out there's a lot more gun owners with dark pigments nowadays. And so a lot of them are newer, and it is good. I help a lot of those at the range I go to. I help a lot of those people that really weren't taught by anybody. So I'm happy. I let this young kid, hey, you ever shot a revolver before? You never shot a revolver before? I put a video of him shooting a Taurus 692 with the 9mm cylinder in the other day. So I let him shoot that, and I help a lot of women out and a lot of POCs. Is that what they call them now? A lot of people of color, a lot of female people. If I see them struggling, being unsafe, the 2A community is always very good about, hey, would you like some help? Point that in a safe direction.
I grew up in a time where it was impolite to talk about colored people. Now we're back to it. This is a crazy world we live in. The people saying racist are the ones actually being racist. I mean, they're the ones caring so much about it. Me, I care about good or bad. I think you're the same way. We care about it's coming down to that in today's terms, and people running a lot of things. Good versus evil. I care if you're a good person. But the 2A community, I think, and I myself, we're good about trying to help people out, help them be safe, help them be responsible gun owners, because they're doing things wrong. They need safety issues taught to them, the 5 main safety things. They need to know how to hold a pistol to not cut a lot of women. I'm like, oh, you're crossing your thumbs on an auto pistol. You're going to get slide bite and cut your thumb. You don't want to do that. And they're having problems with recoil because they're not holding high on the grip. So I think I help a lot of people learn to do that. And that's the 2A community, helping good people be able to protect them and their families. And, perhaps in the future, even be able to hunt. If that's not their thing, at least I know how to shoot accurately in case I need to put a squirrel on the table or a deer on the table. I could do it. I don't know about skinning it and gutting it, but I guess if it comes to that, I'll figure things out eventually. Yeah. Well, I'm not a hunter. I don't, at this point in time, I'm not. I don't disparage anybody who does hunt, because hunters are who's responsible for the conservation effort in the United States. There are a lot of fees that go into hunting that help pay for different land management programs. And, I think it's great. It's just not my choice at this point.
Yeah, I'm not into it, but in Michigan, where I'm from, there's a huge overpopulation problem of deer. And so if you don't go out and hunt the deer, that sounds bad to people, no, you're just making more of them starve and die of disease.
So they don't have any natural predators now.
Yeah, I don't want to starve and die of disease. I'd rather someone put a bullet in my head. If you live in a lot of countries, you die of starvation. That's not an awesome way to go. Dying of starvation and disease. A lot of these politicians now are taking money from that country I hinted at earlier, where they have horrible human rights violations, and you're lucky if you're not having your rights violated and starving and things of that nature. So, someone asked about. Let's go to this question. Someone earlier mentioned the 686, and out of all your Smith & Wesson collections, I don't think I've ever seen one. Do you have a 686?
Not yet.
Have you ever owned one?
No, I have not. I started buying, when I started collecting revolvers, I started getting the things that I was familiar with from back in the 80s when I carried a revolver on duty. And, of course, the later half of my career, I carried a Beretta 96 and a Glock 92. But, a lot of people don't understand this. Like one of my FFL friends, I'll go in and I'll buy a lot of older, like I bought a Hungarian FEG 9mm pistol. It was one of their police pistols. He's like, Greg, why do you like all these older guns? Well, when I was a young police officer and they were selling these guns new. I couldn't afford to buy them. So yeah, I kind of gravitate now towards things like the Model 10 and the Model 66 and the old Chief Special. Plus the quality of Smith was better back in the 70s and early 80s. And but I am trying to convince a friend of mine to sell me his 686.
Oh, really?
So I just got to hit him up. Yeah, he's almost relented, you know, because he don't ever shoot it. It's a safe queen, you know. But
what was the model revolver you carried when you were on duty? When you did carry a revolver, was it a 10 or 66?
First, it was the Model 10. Then it was the Model 66 with a 4-inch barrel.
When you carried the 66, were you guys issued 38 plus P, or were you issued 357 for carry ammo?
No 357. And see, a lot of people see that shooting in South Carolina with the trooper Mark Coates, where he was killed on the roadside by the 22 Magnum that came out of the guy's pocket. And he got off several rounds. Of course, the guy was real fat. So, I mean, he didn't get any shots center mass. And a lot of people assume that just because they were Coates was carrying a 357, that he was carrying 357 rounds. But see, back then, back in the 80s, because there was such a fear in law enforcement administrators and bureaucrats that the department would get sued, because 357 had a reputation as a man stopper and a man killer. And because of it, we carried 158 grain semi-wad cutter. It was supposedly plus P, but they really didn't have a lot of power. So that's what Coates was using in that shooting. So no, we didn't carry much. Very few departments allowed their officers to carry 357.
That's interesting. So you're clarifying that you know that you're pretty sure that from being a law enforcement officer in the same state, correct? Because a lot of websites say that it was 357 silver tip ammo.
No, it was not. It was
that didn't penetrate enough deeply enough.
Yeah, all the departments, all the state, because I worked for a state agency at that time, and all the state agencies were using the 158 grain lead semi-wad cutter. You know, it was a hollow point ammo, but it wasn't very effective, or at least I don't think it was.
Yeah.
And thank God I never shot anybody, but you know, there were a time or two where I had to put an animal down, and those bullets just went right through.
What were those? The 158 grain hollow points? Is that what you said?
Yeah. There was a lead. See, now you have the copper jacketed hollow point, which is much better, and it helps the bullet expand. But
yeah,
those,
I wasn't a big 38 fan. Gun Sam Revolver, another YouTube channel I like, he's got me thinking about 38s, and ballistically, it's kind of right in between the 9mm and up and the 380 and under. 38's kind of in a weird spot. I think overall, whether it's a 2-inch or 4-inch, overall, though there's a few outliers like Critical Defense, 110 grain, overall it seems like a 125 plus P hollow point, whether that's like a full copper or a semi-jacketed hollow point. It seems like 125 plus P seems to be the best bet for a 38 special. Yeah.
You get more speed with that lighter bullet than 158.
Yeah, the heavier hollow points don't have enough velocity to meet expansion threshold, to quote Paul Harrell. So
I love Paul Harrell.
Yeah, Paul.
That guy is so funny. And back before he got to he's big time now, but back before when he was still starting out, he was very approachable, and you could correspond with him and ask him questions and talk to him about different things. But he's gotten to the point, and I understand why, because when you get that big, you can't, you don't have the time to be able to correspond with everybody who writes to you to ask a question or make a comment.
Yeah, I've never tried to. I probably should email him just to see. but I've never tried to. But yeah, Paul Harrell, like I followed him when he was small for a few years, and then all of a sudden, exponentially, he went up like crazy.
He's
So-
he's the expert's expert, and a lot of people may take umbrage at that, but that's what that's what I think about Paul Harrell.
Well,
he's not
I mean,
always,
you have a lot of knowledge yourself, especially when it comes to revolvers, and so people should subscribe to your channels. Also, Howard Funk hopped in here, hrfunk. So he's willing to come on my podcast in the future. I think you like hrfunk's channel as well.
HR is a really good guy. He's also retired. I think he's retired now, retired police officer, but he's doing another job.
Yeah,
now.
he's doing an interesting private security job now. So he's still working, but he just retired from being a chief of police of a small town. Let's get us. We'll get us some pistol talk in a second. Let's talk a little bit about more some of your revolvers. I told you to nail down your top 5 list. Have you done it yet? Are you going to make a top 5 video?
No, it's hard to do.
I know it's hard to do. That's why it's interesting.
All those revolvers are my favorites. I mean, I have the ones. I've narrowed it down to the ones that if I had to get rid of my collection, for God forbid, the ones that I would have to keep, you know, and there would be some surprises in there because it might not necessarily.
Are you still mixing it up what you carry every day, or have you kind of changed recently to carrying a different one for pocket, and maybe occasionally you go out and about and you do a different one for, you know, I assume inside waistband or outside waistband waist carry? What are you carrying nowadays?
Well, it depends. You know, this time of year, you know, shorts and a t-shirt, it's going to be a J-frame snubby and a pocket carry, or maybe a belt carry, you know, depending on where I'm going. If I'm going someplace that's maybe not the best place to be to travel to, you know, I'll be carrying a 9mm pistol, you know, usually Glock 19, or I'll be carrying old Chief Rolling Thunder, that Model 66 357 snubby. Now, that's one thing I have been doing more often. Is
that's your new 2.5-inch one, right? Is that the new one you picked up? Yeah, that's a beautiful pistol.
Yeah. It's not new, but yeah, it's an old classic.
No, my older friend, I gave him those ultimate rosewood grips and did a video on his 2.5-inch. It's not a 66. His is a 19. It's a chrome 19. So at first I thought it was a 66, but boy, does it look nice, and it's beautiful, and it handles nice. I got a video on my channel shooting that before we put the grips on. But boy, once we got those ultimate rosewood grips on it, oh my God, it's so gorgeous. So that's like one of the best, probably the best balance revolver there is.
Well, that was they called it a Combat Magnum, although the original Combat Magnum was the 44 Magnum. But the Model 19 and Model 66 are two of the best shooting guns that Smith & Wesson has ever made.
So usually a 38 pocket, you feel that's okay, you're in a small town. But when you travel to a bad area, does that mean a bad area of your town, or like a bigger city like an hour away? Because I don't know exactly where you're located.
Going someplace bigger, someplace more high crime type area. Yeah, I'll carry.
Then it's time to break out either a higher capacity 9mm. Oh, those evil 9mm. Didn't someone suddenly say they were going to ban all 9mm? Or a 357 Magnum.
The guy in the White House. Yeah, either that or 357. I started carrying 357 more often just because of the times we live in. And, you know, if you're going to carry a 5-shot revolver, and not everybody can shoot 357, but I do okay with it. And in the times we're living in, you really want that. I don't want to say stop.
If you're limited in capacity,
every round to count.
You want every round to be a little more
potent.
Yeah, so Model 640 with Taurus 605 or something like that. I think you have. John Shipman, I believe he was a retired law enforcement officer as well. Holster retention preference on a revolver. So I guess a lot of times you pocket carry, but when you carry on the waist, what type of holsters and position? Where do you carry?
Well, I'm left-handed, so 6 o'clock outside the waistband. I like the Zula holsters and also Simply Rugged. For concealed carry, I don't like a thumb brake. And for duty carry, it depends on the holster and the maker. Thumb brake is okay, but I actually, and it had already gone out when I became a police officer back in the 80s, but I did have one of these, and the old Jordan style holster with the strap. Now, I seem to work really well with those, and I like those for outside the waistband duty carry.
Simply Rugged, I've never had. I would love to get a Simply Rugged holster. They're a little bit expensive, but I guess really good quality. So I've really enjoyed the Don Hume holsters that I've had, all kinds. So I don't know if you've had Don Hume, but I've been pretty happy with Don Hume.
They used to make pretty good holsters that were affordable. I did buy one in recent years for a 3-inch J-frame snubby, and I'm gonna have to show it on video one day because it was horrible, and I'll never buy another Don Hume again.
Really, that's too bad. I like those people, and the girl who answers the phone, she's always so nice to me. And I've liked it. It probably very much depends on what model. So maybe if it was like a more common 2-inch model or something else, maybe there's just oddball ones. But
that probably was why. I should have sent it back, but at the time, I just had started getting back into firearms, and I didn't realize, because most of these companies are really good. If you don't like their product, they'll take it back. I had a holster from, what's the company that sells the magnetic holsters? They clip the magnets. Something tactic.
Yeah, I can't think of it. I think I reached out to them once. They didn't get back to me.
Yeah, but I said, well, I sent one of their holsters back because it really wasn't what I thought it was going to be, and they credited it back to me, so they were good about that.
Yeah, the girl's great at Don Hume. Maybe you should give him a call. I've also liked some of the Safariland holsters and Bianchi holsters. So John or other people in our Revolvers. I've covered a lot of leather holsters and stuff that other channels don't do. So I've got reviews on a lot of different Bianchi and Safariland holsters as well.
One thing I want to say about the Revolvers, as far as a holster, you got to be careful. You don't want a holster, and a lot of the holsters for Revolvers for duty carry for police officers, they were floppy. It might be a very high quality holster, like the Safariland holster, very high quality, but it was floppy. And even though you had the thumb brake, it wasn't good for weapon retention because it was real easy for somebody to get their hand on it and possibly pull it out of your holster. So you really want something that'll ride close to your body for weapon retention. And, that's something I've never really talked about, but I might need to do a video on that about weapon retention.
Yeah, I probably should as well, but it definitely depends where you carry, and if we're talking concealed, which is what most people are doing, that's very different than duty as well. I mean, duty now, it's all pistols and level 3 retention holsters, and that has saved a lot of law enforcement officers' life. Because back in the day,
I hated those level 3 holsters because they stick way out here, and it's secure, but then it's hard for you to get it out, and then you're bumping into stuff with it all the time. And in a struggle, somebody could grab it. They could get the gun out, but they could swing you around with it. See, I had the old guy that was the the defensive tactics instructor at South Carolina Criminal Justice Academy back in the 70s and early 80s was this sawed-off, mush-mouth highway patrolman named Sergeant Can. And he was a black belt in Taekwondo and a black belt in Jiu-jitsu. And that guy was tough as nails. And the stories about him were legend. But he used to talk about the old Jordan holster. And the highway patrol at that time went to the clamshell-style holster. And Sergeant Can would show us how easy just to hit that and pull the gun up. And he said he was talking about the guy who had the major who had decided that was the holster they were supposed to carry. He'd be like, "That guy's a sissy. I could beat him up with one hand tied behind my back." Anyway, that brings back a lot of memories right there.
Yeah.
I'll tell you another story about him. And they were legend, but he was a highway patrolman down in Beaufort where they had the Marine Corps base. And he stopped a Marine Corps captain for DUI one night. And the captain wasn't going to go to jail with no punk. I won't say the rest of it, but no punk South Carolina highway patrolman. And by the time Bruce got through breaking ribs, he was begging him to take him to jail.
Oh,
of course, that's back when you could get away with stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting talking to some of the older law enforcement people I have on. Things were a different time, but sometimes it was a lot better the way you could use your judgment to deal with things.
Well, I mean, back then they had a radio in the car. They didn't have a radio on their person. He's out there, 30, 40 miles from the next officer. What are you going to do?
Let me give my 2 cents on a 686. I think a 686 plus 3-inch is probably still a very good carry weapon. You get you that 7 shots. I have a video, my first video that really blew up when I just got into revolvers. I've been shooting pistols my whole life. I didn't shoot revolvers till 2 years ago. Is a 3-inch 7-shot 357 Magnum a viable CCW option? Of course, that's the Ruger GP100. We got a kind of a special model of that, Halo model. But the 686 is probably also a very fine revolver, especially older times before a certain Killery's nasty hole got put on it. That dirty cobweb thing. But
everybody people that I respect who are in the know, and I'm not going to drop any names, but the general consensus is, and they don't broadcast it too loudly, but that the 686 is actually a superior gun to the what's the Colt? What's the Cadillac?
The famous one.
Python.
Yeah, the Colt Python. Yeah.
That is actually a better shooting gun than the Colt Pythons. So, take that for what it's worth. I've shot a Colt Python. I've never shot a 686. So,
well, that's crazy. You're such a revolver channel. It's crazy to hear. I mean, Pythons were great, but they weren't as reliable for sure. I mean, they're finer handcrafted parts that could break. As a duty weapon, I would love to own a Python. And I have a recent video shooting my friend's 38 version, basically, which is a Colt Diamondback, a 4-inch barreled Colt Detective Special. It's the same frame, really, as the Diamondback. And the thing was sweet, and I'd love to own one. I'll probably never own a Python. Too rich for my blood. I'd love to.
I carried a Diamondback for one department while it was a 6-month period while they were trying to get me the Beretta. And that was a very good shooting revolver, very accurate. But
have you seen the prices? You should have bought that one.
I look back now and it's like, oh my Lord, I wish I had. But the problem was that they went out of time very easily, and I could count on 5 shots, but I knew the 6th one wasn't going to hit. And I was so happy to get that Beretta, because it was like, okay, I'll never forget. I got a call about an armed robbery in progress, and I'm sitting there looking at. I pull that Diamondback out, and I'm like, okay, let's look in the closet here in the office and see if there's still a shotgun.
Yeah. In fact, I think a lot of times law enforcement gets complacent. If you got, let's say, an alarm call, well, 99 times out of 100, it's probably just a false alarm, and I think cops get complacent. But if you're going to an alarm call, if you're going to a lot of these domestic cases and stuff, if you're not the first on scene, someone should be responding with a patrol rifle. If you got 4 cops on scene, one of them should have a friggin' rifle. There's no point in having 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cops show up and no one has a long gun. And if you're going to an alarm call, you should take the time, use your key, get your shotgun or rifle. Most are rifles nowadays, but you should have a long gun with you, because if it does go bad, it's going to go bad, and you're much better having at least one of your party, at least one out of every 4 in responding to a situation should have a long gun in their hands.
Yeah, that's definitely something that law enforcement has needed to start carrying the patrol rifle. It wasn't accepted there for a while, and there was a lot of resistance towards it from police administrators. But see, in this day and time, I think every officer needs to be trained and needs to have a patrol rifle available.
Yeah. And I don't care if it was a lever gun, but a long gun's a long gun and pistol's a pistol. These are very different things. One is way more accurate and has way more actual stopping power than pistols that are just little pokers. And I hate to say that. So, wait, you carried a 92 or a 96, and what did you think about that platform? Let's talk about the Beretta 92 and 96s a little bit.
Well, the 96, I never really mastered it. At the time, I couldn't afford to shoot on my own, and we only qualified a couple of times a year, and it jammed a lot. And of course, that might have been, my inexperience. And now I realize that a lot of the guns, the double single action pistols, and also 1911s, because of being left-handed, I have a tendency to put that right thumb where it pushes on the
you hit the slide stop up?
The slide stop.
Yeah, you're hitting the slide stop up, yeah.
And what that does, it causes a double feed. And I was shooting it's the Star BM9. I was shooting that the other day, and I was trying to be real careful, and I was still hitting that slide stop from the other side, and that caused it to jam again. And I just have to see. I've gotten where I shoot more isosceles now, and but for a double single action or a 1911, I'm gonna have to stick with Weaver and just shoot Weaver. That way, I know I'm not going to get my thumb near that slide release.
Yeah, that happened to me once at a USPSA match. I hit the slide stop up on a formerly owned evil 9mm pistol that I had to sell because everyone says they're evil, and COVID-19 '84 happened, so I needed money, unfortunately. But anyway, I was competing at a USPSA match, and I just switched my grip to, I think, a better grip. It's for recoil control, a Vogel style grip. But I had just switched my grip, and I didn't realize it. I thought, oh my God, this pistol's jamming on me, and it's never jammed before. Thought it was ammo related. It wasn't. I realized later that night, I'm like, oh, I just switched my grip. I was bumping up the slide stop. Happened twice during competition. And I'm like, this pistol had never, ever, ever jammed. And it didn't jam. That was user error. I had bumped up the slide stop. So you got to be careful with your grip. And, of course, you being an evil, wrong-handed person, you probably have to be a little more careful with that. But overall, guys, I think the Beretta 92, 96 is a great platform. I think usually it's very reliable. It's open, SOP. anyone that ever had problems with it is problems with their hand size. So, I mean, if it was an old 96, a humpback, now they got 92Xs and Vertex that have flat. But for a lot of people, it's their hand size that didn't give good trigger reach, especially that first DA pull. That's probably something you had a problem with. And if you had any reliability issues, that's probably because it needed a new recoil spring and a new locking block. Really, I think a recoil spring is supposed to be changed every 10,000 rounds, and a locking block is supposed to be changed every 5,000. So people that had problems with, mostly in the Army, it was because the maintenance was never kept up on them, number one. Okay, maintenance was horrible, and so recoil springs shot to shit. And then they used off-brand checkmate mags. And when you were in Afghanistan and Iraq, the finer, coarser sand got into those checkmate mags. And so that was the issue. It wasn't the actual platform. The platform, I think, is a great platform that a lot of people are starting to come back to.
Yeah, I've been thinking very strongly about.
I'd like to get a 92X.
A Beretta 92.
Well, nowadays the gun to get nowadays, if you wanted a conceal carry, would be a 92X Centurion, and either buy it if you can find one, a GR decocker only model, or change it out yourself, which is easy to do nowadays. Years ago, it wasn't. I mean, it's fairly easy. Fairly inexpensive, like $55 to change it to decocker only. But I don't know now. I held it long ago, and I like the original humpback. But now a 92X comes with a flat Vertex grip, or you can put the over mold grip on the back, so you can really feel either one. Figure out which we prefer. But for a lot of people with most size hands, that 92X or with a Vertex style, a flat grip gets rid of that big hump that will fit a lot of people's hands better. And for concealed carry, the slightly shorter Centurion model is probably the way to go, and making a decock only or a D model or a G model, a G decocker on it is the way to go. So, yeah, you might want to look into getting or trying it out. I'd like to get one myself.
Well,
but
I did have the Taurus clone that's supposed to be as good as, or I don't know about that, but I had one of those Taurus 92s, PT 92s for a while, and I couldn't miss with that gun. And the only reason I got rid of it, I had a friend who needed a firearm for working high risk security, and I didn't. He was gonna buy an SD9 VE from Smith & Wesson. That was all he could afford. And I'm like, look, let me give you this. You can have this gun. I want. And so anyway, I wouldn't mind, but I wouldn't mind having a Beretta 92.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. I mean, I wouldn't mind getting a stainless Taurus PT 92. To be honest, I don't like the kind of baked on black looking one. But I'd like to get a stainless 92. And then I want to get a stainless PT 92 someday, and then put on some rosewood Altamont grips on it. Ooh, I think that would look real nice. And those are very reliable. Even when Taurus had quality control issues, the PT 92 was always probably one of the most reliable Taurus. And Taurus has come a long way now. I review a lot of Taurus on my channel.
I mean, it was so accurate right out of the box.
Yeah. Or maybe get a 92X and see which fits your hand better. Hopefully the prices are starting to come back down now. Right before C84 hit, the prices on them were really good. And I saw a couple now starting to come back down. Hopefully they come back down and you could actually maybe get a Beretta 92X and see which grip fits your hand better. So let's go a little bit longer. Let's a little more. I haven't talked about firearms on any other channel. So John Chipman asks, thoughts on decocker versus striker fired and preferences. You want to go?
Sure. Safety wise, especially if you have children and grandchildren in the household, decocker. Striker fired, that's more of a duty weapon. Well, it depends. It depends. But any striker fired pistol, you need a good quality holster that's going to cover the trigger. And, just being if it doesn't have a safety or you don't use the safety, being very careful about trigger management. Either or. I like Glock 19 a lot. That's first time I ever shot a Glock, it was a Glock 22, and I was like, oh my God, how can anybody miss with this gun? Well, a lot of people can miss with that gun, but I do like Glock 19 and 22 and 23.
Yeah. I am not a huge Glockophile. My first pistol was a Glock 23 Gen 2. I have a recent video that Greg responded to why Glocks suck and are way overpriced. Factual reasons, and they are, and you might want to check out that video. It's starting to get popular. I don't mind the 45 10mm models. I don't mind the Glock 48, but the Glock 19, 26, 34 series of pistols, I just don't think they hold up nowadays at all, especially for the money.
Well, mine's a Gen 3, so
yeah.
And,
which actually, in general, I think Gen 3s were more reliable than Gen 4 when they changed the recoil spring assembly. Some people did have quite a few problems with Gen 4 Glocks, I got to say, and weren't as reliable as people like to claim. I'll answer the question. I think it's a good question. Depends on your level of training and safety training. I think a lot of people, striker fired leads to more NDs. If you're trained and you understand the trigger finger straight outside the trigger guard until you're ready to fire, and you have good trigger discipline, I think there's nothing wrong with striker firing. That's what most people nowadays carry. That's what most people nowadays buy. You can make them pretty darn cheap, which is why I bag on people that have huge markups for bad trigger guns with plastic sights. But there's a lot of great striker fired pistols nowadays are very, very, very reliable. They're easy to shoot well. As far as decocker, then we're talking typically a double action, single action pistol. Most people can't train enough or don't train enough to handle the double action and single action transition. Of course, you could train through that and make great double taps, even doing draw to DASA. Paul Harrell has a video on that. Ernest Langdon has very good videos. He chooses to carry a Beretta 92 most of the time, or even a Springfield DASA auto. Masad Ayoub still carries. A lot of people are going back to how awesome the Beretta 92 series are. I've reviewed a PX4 Storm 45. Did a first shots video you might want to check out. I don't know if I've shot the 9mm 40, but I shot the 45. I have a video on, John. Check it out. Those are great low recoil as long as you oil them enough to make them reliable. Great recoil reducing with the rotating barrel. I think from a safety perspective, a DASA auto, if you're trained on it, is more safe because hopefully you always decock out of habit while reholster, and that's the most common NDs, especially for law enforcement that got Glock leg. So upon reholstering, you have to have a very good straighten outside the trigger guard, trigger finger, and try not to muzzle yourself, which everyone does, fishing for a leather holster, whether it's 3 o'clock or appendix carry. Nowadays, everyone's going to. I switched to appendix carry myself. Someday when I'm older, I might go back to 3 o'clock outside the waistband. But
no appendix carry for me. I can't do it. I cannot make myself do it.
I borrowed a friend's DA pistol for a while, and I did revolver carry first, and now I'm comfortable carrying, striker fired appendix. I'm okay with that, especially in a good holster. Striker fireds go in a Kydex holster. DA autos or revolvers go in nice leather holsters. I kind of do both. Okay, I kind of do both. For law enforcement, really the best system there is for most people and for law enforcement is actually HK's LEM trigger. HK's LEM trigger is what every law enforcement should be using, but HKs are expensive, so they get Glocks. The LEM trigger system is the long on the first shot, short reset, follow-up shots. Unless you're firing on a bad guy and now you have to reassess, you come back off that trigger, and it's safer that way until you maybe have another bad guy that needs lead love too. You still have that long first roll. It's safer. Really, the best system there is, honestly, especially for law enforcement, would be the LEM trigger system, because it combines the best of both DA and easy training and no having to remember to decock. You don't need it. And it adds all the safety of a DA in that long first trigger pull when you let off the trigger. You still got a nice short reset like a striker fired. So LEM is the way to go. And they're even hard to find. Most of them you find are the safety models. But once I actually fired it, I became a advocate, like active self-protection, of the LEM trigger system. It's too bad that other people don't have something like that, to be honest. John says leather views the bluing on pistols. It might. I don't have enough experience.
Yeah.
And I try not to like even stainless revolvers or whatever sit inside a leather holster, because that gets the moisture, especially in a southern state, that gets the moisture and is what causes the rusting, is the actual leaving it overnight in a leather holster. So unless it's go ahead.
There's something about the way the acids they use to tan the leather and the dyes that over time that it can seep onto the metal. A good source, go to the Smith and Wesson forums, and there's a lot of discussion there about that. If you'll go to that forum, it's the Smith and Wesson forums.
Alexander Hailing says, can I talk about retention using something like a knife, a Cobra TDI law enforcement model knife? Alexander, I have carried a TDI while working security before. I do own a TDI. It's a little blade with curved. I think that is good carried offside for weapon retention, especially for law enforcement or security. To me, as a civilian, though, even though I've gone through a SWAT school, as a civilian, I think either carrying a TDI, which doesn't look vicious like some other like push daggers do. I think you have to think about legalities and possibly having to defend yourself in a good shoot, but you know, a prosecutor trying to sway the jury. So I think a TDI is pretty good because it doesn't look evil like carrying a fixed blade, a big fixed blade, I should say, or a karambit or something. I think you have to think about jury. As a civilian, I have to come down to, do I carry and one day recently in a different state, I carried a pistol and a TDI when I first got to that state. So for carrying over in other country states and stuff, or even having to work in countries or zones where you can't carry a pistol, I think a TDI is a good thing. I like the TDI carried offside for weapon retention if they go for a gun grab, to be able to grab and hear. I've also carried a Tonto that way. You could do the same thing, but you have to think about, you know, if it came to it, what that's going to look like if you had to stab someone. Or a little TDI, you go, oh, that's just for weapon retention. A lot of law enforcement carry it. My other point is I have to decide as a civilian, do I carry a straight blade or even a small TDI, or do I carry a backup gun? I like to carry a backup gun myself. So you don't kind of want too much on you, but the way I was trained, I like to have a pistol available to either hand. There's a lot of reasons for that. Mostly, the benefit of pocket carry is you get out of your car and there's to walk into a store and there's some shady people, or even at a gas station at the pump, you can have your hand on the pistol without brandishing or being threatening or assaulting in any kind of way. So that's the benefit of carrying a backup gun, is one of them's in your pocket. I like offside front pocket carry for the backup, because in day-to-day life, do I have to lift my shirt and grab my hand on the pistol very often? No. Do I feel very comfortable putting my hand discreetly on the backup gun in a pocket? Yeah. I even do it if I'm having, I hate going into gas stations. I pay at the pump. Transitional spaces, I like to have my hand on the backup gun in the pocket in transitional spaces. So that's my little thing on that. John Chipman, 45. Yeah, 45 is the best caliber there is. Beat it, 9mm guys. You don't know what you're talking about. Absolutely. They do different amounts of damage. There is no denying that. I've done the math on it. There's absolutely no denying it. If you carry 9mm or whatever, okay, fine. Carry a snubby 38, okay, fine. But that
45,
doesn't mean
I like
that
45. And sometimes I carry a compact 1911. The thing with the 45, for most people, they're not going to be able to get their shots on target in a timely fashion. Let's put it that way. Because they don't practice. They don't practice enough, and most people don't practice enough. And in fact, most police officers, if they're lucky, they might qualify twice a year, and that might be the only practice they get. But hey, 45 is great. I got a lot of respect for the 1911 guys who carry full-size 1911.
I might switch. I just reviewed my first 1911. The video on the unboxing went live a couple days ago, guys. A 1911 on a Glock had a baby. Please support that video. Like it. Go in the comments now just to help me out. Please, the algorithm with this kind of stuff and this whole podcast will probably not be good. They purposely suppress this kind of talk. But it's a 1911 and a Glock had a baby, so it's kind of interesting. And so that's my first review on that. The range report will come, I think, next Saturday. And hopefully I will review a Ruger lightweight commander in the future too. So I got to work on that.
That would be great. That would be great. That's what there's so many firearms out there. Even now, we're so lucky to live in the United States where we can own and buy these various types of firearms. And once you start collecting and getting into it, it's so addictive, because it's like HR told me. He said you can't buy enough guns.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll see how much longer we are allowed to have our God-given or universally given constitutional right. We'll see what happens. When we finish on 45, I have a 4-part series, 45 versus 9mm. Anyone who believed here say, oh, they're all the same. They're not all the same. I have a 4-part series on it. Tissue Crush is way, way different. Way, 1.5 to 2.13 times, comparing equal hollow points to equal hollow points, HST to HST, critical duty to critical duty. There's that much of a difference. If you carry 9mm because it's lighter or because you shoot it better, because you can handle the recoil, and for beginners, 9mm is better, okay? But special teams, SWAT, HRT, they should be carrying 45 pistols. Absolutely. I still believe that. Special teams, highly trained people, 45 is going to do more damage, drop the bad guy faster. It does, because it creates quicker blood loss. Absolutely. So if you don't hit the central nervous system, which barely ever happens, it's about blood loss, diastolic pressure loss, and a 45 ball to ball, it's 62% more damage. So look at my videos on that. If you really want to learn about ballistics, even the guys doing ballistics don't seem to understand the stuff that I've looked into and really, really studied. Before we go off that topic, you got that is it a 3.5 inch or is it a commander? I think you got a 3.5 inch baby Rock Island. Has that been reliable?
Yeah. In fact, I did have the extractor broke. And it's probably my fault the way I was cleaning it, because I was running a towel through the grip.
You did it.
But it broke when I was shooting it, and I sent it back to Rock Island Armory, and they sent it back. They sent a new mainspring, and they did all kinds of good stuff to it. So their customer service is really good.
Really, that's awesome.
It's been very reliable. I've been impressed because I just wanted just a plain Jane GI looking, something real basic.
Guys, we'll go maybe another 15 minutes or so. So get your best questions. Speaking of that, I would like to test the Rock Island 1911. I've heard the customer service is great, and they give customer service even on a hand-me-down like yours probably was, even if you're not the first buyer. For life, they're going to do customer service and fix your pistol just like Ruger's great with, and Smith & Wesson is usually very good with.
Smith & Wesson, it's 50-50.
It's been going 50-50 lately. That's too bad. They used to be great.
It depends on
Ruger and Rock Island are great too.
Smith, it depends on what level of handgun you send back to them. And it also depends on how you write up your request. I had one of my subscribers had a 642 airweight that he's had for 7 years, and he shot a lot of rounds through it. And he sent it back because it finally bit the dust, and they said, well, that's tough. Sorry, Charlie, we're not going to fix it. It can't be fixed, and we're not going to replace it. So he said he's never going to buy another Smith & Wesson again. And I hate
Next question from a Russian friend, as I'm getting tired here, guys. We talked about Kalashnikov and his weapons. I will say I have very little experience, but I think they're a great design. I think it was the right design. I mean, the main one we're familiar with. I don't even want to say the name. Made 74 years ago. Ooh, good math. 74 years ago. I think it was great. They shoot dirty. They shoot without oil. They shoot steel case. I think it's probably the best design. And even recently in America's issues with ammo gating, while 5.56 shot up in price, ridiculously so, you could still get steel case 7.62 very, very cheaply. I think it's a great round for not long range. After like 300 meters, it really just droops off. But for 200 meters and in, especially, it's a hard hitting, good intermediate round between R5.56 and R7.62, Russian 7.62. By 39, I think that's a great kind of size cartridge and steel case, and even a lot of Americans that prepped with their 5.56 might want to think about getting a 7.62 because the ammo stayed cheap and it still kept coming in. And it's great when there's a reliable platform for cheap 7.62 steel case. So I think it's a great design, and an interesting guy, Kalashnikov, as well. You got any thoughts? Have you worked with any? Have you ever owned one? Not saying
no,
you
never have. It's on the bucket list. I wish I'd have bought one 2 years ago when I had the opportunity, because that ammo was available.
Yeah, don't we all? John Chipman, thoughts on RMR red dot sights? I actually reviewed a friend's new pistol with the newest, greatest, latest RMR with the ACSS reticle. So you want a ACSS reticle red dot, though I don't know if battery life is supposed to last 2 years, and yet my friend said it popped off after just 2 months, less than 2 months, twice with new batteries. So maybe they're electronics. I don't know if it's reliable as it should be, but it is the wave of the future, and I think the ACSS reticle is the wave of the future. So you might want to look into that, because that helps you, instead of only having a perfect presentation, which guys teach, like Samurai Project, with Jeremy Horn has been going to. Yeah, but in a real fight, I'm falling out of a car as a cop or whatever. In a recent shootout that I saw the footage of, you might be falling out of a car. You might be at a weird angle. You might be shot and down on your knees or down on your back. The ACSS reticle, which is a huge reticle on top of a chevron. So if it's up close to you and you like to shoot modified car position, like I do, and a lot of guys were at SWAT, even if they didn't call it that, it solves all the problems. It solves all the problems with red dot. So hopefully in the future, other stuff will get that big ring with a chevron. It solves all the issues. I don't know if battery life and the electronics is reliable as they really need to be yet. But hopefully that answers your question, and definitely look into the, they'll be aware of the issues and maybe get backup sights on the 507C holoson with ACSS reticle. But it kind of really solves all the issues, and it kind of solves the issues as you get older and have trouble picking up. I still think a bright orange night sight, front night sight, maybe a blacked out rear, but a bright orange front night sight or an Access big dot as you age. I think those are great options as well, because most defensive gun use is 7 yards and in. A lot of it's at 5 yards and 3 yards. So I still think that's a good way to go, and you don't need a red dot. But like hrfunk, his eyes were going a couple years ago. He switched over to a red dot. It is the wave of the future. So you should at least probably play with it and get used to it. You haven't played with any red dots yet, have you, Greg?
I have. I've shot other people's guns, and I'm still an irons guy, or plastics, I guess, if you're shooting a Glock. And but I that is the wave of the future. And as I get older, that's probably going to be something I'm going to have to do.
Yeah, even my 77-year-old friend, he's thinking about it, and I'm trying to tell him which pistols. And there's all these micro compacts now, but unfortunately, you need like the 508K with like a smaller window, and the ACSS reticle hasn't gone into the smaller ones yet. That's probably coming, and I'm not sure if the small window would work for a guy 77. So certain stuff that can get that ACSS probably is the way to go. So in the future, though, the tech's coming. Okay, a few more questions, guys. Plus P ammo, yeah, why not? If you're a good shooter with good recoil control, why not? Now, if you're shooting a 3-inch micro compact pistol like a Hellcat or 365, most people, I'm a big, strong guy. Most people probably shouldn't bother with plus P. In 38, you kind of need to actually get expansion. So, yeah, on 38, to actually get expansion, which is tissue crush, to make it actually a defensively good, 9mm, if it's 3.5-inch barrel or longer, plus P, yeah, absolutely, go for it. Whether that's 124 grain or, God forbid, 115 grain, yeah, go plus P. Or a shitty 147 grain, less than a 4-inch barrel. HSTs used to come in plus P favor. I don't like 147 and longer than shorter than a 4-inch barrel. Absolutely not. It doesn't have universal expansion threshold. Even though people pump that and say it's the bestest from their itty bitty barrel, they're wrong. John Chipman, HK brand for reliable? Yeah, HKs are friggin' awesome. They're just friggin' expensive. But occasionally keep your eyes peeled. If you can get an HK for like under $700 on the used market, and I'm not talking a DP9, but any of the hammer-fired HKs, if you can get an HK under $700 used, go for it. Absolutely. Amazingly reliable. So I did an unboxing of HK. Go check that out, and I talk a lot about that. And recently, I have a video. I just shot 2 mags out of it. My 77-year-old friend, Slick 50, I shot his HK 40 USP, and I'm like, wow, this handles the recoil of the 40 really well. I shot it really well, but his trigger was awesome. And one time I drew it cocked and locked, and one time I drew it DASA, and even the DA pull on his is awesome because he put 40,000 rounds through it without cleaning, and it didn't fail. Without cleaning, he put 40,000 rounds through USP to prove to his people that they shouldn't get rid of it at his department. I think the mag releases are fine. On the USP, they were smaller. Once you went to like a 45 compact, which our Navy SEALs adopted as the Mark 24, Look up the HK45C, still an amazing weapon platform, and the LEM is the most amazing trigger platform. If you combine safety and shootability and all this, and you don't want to mess with DASA. Have you ever experienced with HKs, Greg? Before I move on.
No, I have not. Those are usually way out of my price range, and only thing I know about HKS is that. Or an HK is that that's Donald Trump's choice for home defense. Caliber 45. He carries an airweight. He carries an airweight Smith and Wesson. He's got a New York.
I never heard that. I knew that. I didn't know that about the HK45 thing.
There's a video on the internet or on YouTube about that. I don't know what you'd have to search to find it. Maybe just search Trump's guns.
Well, stop saying the man's name. We can't do that on YouTube. But 45 like the 45, so 45 pro-American like the American caliber of 45. Go figure. No way.
And 38.
And 38. Yes, indeed. I think that's what he regularly probably still carries. Alexander, regular sights, iron. Yeah, point and shoot, most CCW situations. There are outliers. You should become a good shot at long range. But far above and beyond, we know it's 7 yards and in, and for civilians, it's probably more like 5 yards and in, and a lot of them do happen at 2 arm length distance, which is about 2.5 yards, 2 yards. And if you look at all the defensive gun use, by Tom Given's instructors, look at that data. There was one outlier at, I think, 21 yards. And there's been outliers in Texas to save a cop. A guy used the Colt Python in 2012. I think it was like a 72-yard shot with a Colt Python to come to the rescue of a cop that was getting beat or shot or something. So you have to practice long range, and you should have those abilities, but most people don't have it. For most people, it's point and click up range, and point shooting does come. I practice all different positions. Guys, you will want to look at my advanced CCW test video. I teach car position at close range and holding people at gunpoint, and for searching and home searches and going down hallways and upstairs. I think it's really viable. I do the Bill Jordan cowboy lean. I practice that. I don't know if you ever do the step out cowboy lean, but you should add that to your repertoire, Greg. If you haven't, learn from the old people. Some of that's point shooting stuff and different positions. But yeah, like most people can't shoot for shit. They should probably use the Access Big Dot. I'm putting probably on that 1911 review. Access sent me their cheapo Glock sights, which is a black serrated rear, so nice with a big front orange convex, picks up the light night sight like the R3D. The R3D is probably the best night sights I've ever seen, and this is similar to that. So even for $55, you can like for a Glock pistol, black serrated rear, front orange night sight. I think that's kind of the best sighting system. Is nowadays that's kind of what I think is the best for real defensive gun use. And for revolvers, paint bright orange nail polish on that right? Paint bright orange nail polish. I have a video on how to do it, guys, on that front sight. And you can use a white coat first if you want to do a good job, then a bright orange after it dries, and then a clear coat on top. You put red or orange nail polish on a lot of your revolvers, don't you, Greg, or no?
Oh, absolutely. And, even my old classics I do, because who knows, I might have to put them into service one day, because you never know.
So, Greg, we've gone 2.5 hours. I can't talk anymore. Greg, is there anything you want to plug? Or
I just want to say thank you, Dan. It's been a pleasure. You're the first person that's been able to talk me into doing something like this. So give you a thumbs up on that.
Before we go, do you want to talk about, are there any funny police stories you want to give? Naked people or crazy? Are there one or two cop stories you want to give before we go?
maybe the guy threw his glass eye at me. You know, you know, there's so many, but I'll
You
tell that
almost
one.
ruined my computer. I almost spit out all that water on my computer, Greg.
Okay,
All right,
I was
tell
working.
tell the story.
I was working at, this is early in my career. I was working as a correctional officer in the county jail, and they brought in this drunk who was DUI, and he was acting so crazy they couldn't do the breathalyzer. So we put him in the drunk tank, and that drunk tank was approximately 15 by 10 and was nothing but concrete, nothing to sit on or anything, and just a commode. Well, he had, just like every other drunk, he started beating on the door. And then he stripped off his jumpsuit and started put his jumpsuit in the commode and was stomping up and down on the jumpsuit in the commode. So we shut the water off. We walked back out, and I was with this Vietnam vet named Ike, and Ike didn't anything faze him. He'd also been a semi-pro boxer. You know, nothing ever fazed Ike. So we go walking back out, and we're hearing the thump, thump, thump. And next thing we know, the bulletproof glass shatters. It scatters everywhere. And Ike's looking at me, and I'm looking at him. So we go into the cell, and of course, the guy's naked, and he cut his thumb, cut his thumb halfway off. So we got him sitting on the concrete. He's got his legs crossed, and I'm doing compressions on this hand, and Ike's doing compressions on this hand. And all of a sudden, he jerks his hand out of mine, and he does this, and he throws something on the ground. And I'm thinking, okay, this is what he broke the glass with. And I picked it up, and it was a glass eye. And I look at this glass eye, and I look up at this guy, and that empty socket's staring at me, and he's grinning real big, you know. So anyway, we had to send him to the ER. And so he comes back, and he does the same thing. He strips off his jumpsuit, and we put him in an isolation cell. He starts walking around the cell, climbing on the bed, walking on the commode, and he's writing on the wall. And Ike, by that time, Ike's just like, oh, my God, I don't know what. Ike's seen everything, done everything. And he's over there shaking the keys at him. You stop acting crazy in there. And that guy goes, I'm writing the power of Jesus's name on the wall. So anyway, truth is stranger than fiction.
I don't know what I would do if I had to confront a naked dude with a hole missing in his eyeball.
When I showed Ike, I said, Ike, look. And I showed him that glass eye, and he looked. I thought his eyes were going to pop out.
Well, that's crazy. Greg, I want to thank you for coming on. You saved today because I didn't have a guest. So thank you for saving a day. Guys, go subscribe to Lionquest Fitness and Lionquest Exercise. Greg, I like talking to you. You seem like a good, honorable man. I think it's good that you help these kids out and you teach them some real-world skills and about law enforcement and firefighting. Guys don't know, I also went to a fire academy myself after 9/11. And, you know, I've been a volunteer firefighter just a little bit. I'm Fire 1, 2, and hazmat certified. So I think it's great you're teaching these kids. I think kids nowadays should be taught things like metal shop isn't around anymore, auto repair. You know, there's nothing wrong with getting your hands dirty and doing an honest day's work. In fact, those people are going to have jobs when, you know, as it looks like the stock market is crashing right now, people are going to lose their jobs. We talked about, think about having food and water and ways to clean your water at your house. Think about being able to hunt and survive, because it seems like bad things are coming more and more. So being self-reliant, what happened to self-responsibility? Anyway, Greg, I think you're a good guy, and I think it's been great talking to you. Anyone that joined in today with questions, I want to thank you very much. And I think that's a wrap, folks. You got anything else to say, Greg?
No, just thank you, Dan, and keep doing what you're doing.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thumbs up, subscribe. After this ends, stay around and get in the comments. Give me a comment and a like, please, for the algorithm on the under the YouTube video in just 1 second. Thank you, everybody. Have a good Sunday. Take care.